Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to my presentation. First of all, let me thank you all for coming here today. Let me start by saying just a few words about myself. My name is Veena, and I'm a film producer from Indonesia that focuses on horror genre. For today's presentation, I would like to talk about improving the quality of horror films in Indonesia. This topic is particularly important for those of you who will be the young generations for Indonesia's film industry. Also, the purpose of this presentation is to widen your knowledge about how we can improve horror films in Indonesia. Here's a quote from Mary Cook. Creativity is inventing, experimenting, growing, taking risks, breaking rules, making mistakes, and having fun. Before we get into the main points, did you know that the poll shows only 30% find Indonesian horror films scary, while the other 70% didn't find it scary at all? Now, let's start with the points. The first one is about why 70% people does not find it scary. I've listed a few problems that often occurs. The first one is bad production. For example, poor effects, makeup, and even how they edit it. And for the second problem is how they always use the same ghosts for every horror film, like Kuntilanak and Pocong. Lastly is predictable plot. Indonesia often uses the same plot over and over again. And by doing that, there will be no excitement anymore while watching the movie. Another thing I want to add in this point is Asian countries that have the best horror film quality. Countries like Japan, Thailand, and South Korea produce the best horror film in Asia, and sometimes they can even go international. This leads to the next question. Why we're not included for the best horror film quality in Asia? The difference between Indonesia and those countries is how we are lacking of device for editing and effects. The second reason is because of the actors' expression. Indonesian actors tend to have a flat facial expression when it comes to crying or showing the expression of fear. And finally, how ghost is the only thing what Indonesian people refer to horror movies. We should know that fantasy or mythological creature like monsters can be used in a horror film too. So with knowing our problems, this leads directly to my next point. The second point I'd like to talk about is what makes a horror movie scary. There are 4 things we can do to create a horror movie that is scary and does not look cheap. First one is not using jump scare too much. Using too many jump scares to make the audience scared does not mean that they're afraid. They are just shocked due to the sudden sound. The second is visual. Imagery is a lasting impression in a horror movies. Certain imagery goes home with the audience and often stays with them for days, weeks, months, and sometimes for the rest of their lives. That is why some good horror movies use disfigured being for visual. There's something about disfigured humans that mesmerizes audiences. Going back to the old carny days complete with the freak shows. Audiences were both entranced and horrified at the sight, and horror movies accomplish that same dual feeling all too often. The third thing is by using the right location. Yes, it truly is everything in the end, especially for many horror films. A creepy location becomes a character within movie, and all too often, the creeper the location, the creeper the movie. Probably the best example is the Overlook Hotel from The Shining movie. That location is perhaps the most iconic haunted location of any movie. And for the last thing is having the right actor. Actors are the core piece of any film. Chemistry between actors is often what makes a film successful because it is so exciting to watch. This quality points out to how an actor creates a connection not just with the audience but also with fellow performers. By knowing the base of a good scary movie, this brings us to the next question, which is how we can improve our horror films quality. We can make Indonesian horror films evolve by exploring more urban legends and local myth for reference. So the story and the ghost or creature will not always the same. The second way is adapting to new film technologies. Indonesia should try to keep up with the times by updating the film technologies. By doing that, editing shouldn't be a problem anymore. Finally, a proper selection for actor. Why? Because actors are the one who's telling the story of the movie through their act and facial expression. That is why we need to choose actor based on how good their talent is for face expression, not just because they're famous. That's all I wanted to say about the main points. In conclusion, I want to say that due to many cultural differences in Indonesia, we have the benefit of having a lot of reference from it. Therefore, we need to explore more and experimenting to new things. With doing that, we can also increase our creativity. Also, I want horror genre in Indonesia to evolve more. Why? Because the country actually has the potential to make good and high quality horror films. Additionally, there is a possibility to go international. I want to challenge you today. You are listening to me because you are somebody who is so passionate about films. You are somebody who wants to share stories through a movie. You are somebody who wants to make a difference. You are somebody who wants to change people's view about Indonesian horror films. I want to challenge you today to be that first one who improve the quality of Indonesia horror films because people will follow you. Be bold and be fearless. That's all for today. Thank you for your attention.